From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media. A Neighbor's Choice. I'm your host, your neighbor, David Gronowski. So glad to be with you live across FM, AM, podcast, and video stream, where we're happy to look at the news together like we always do. That's what we do on this program. We cut through the noise and confusion. It's not just about me. It's about everybody together in this community, all centered around aneighborschoice.com. That makes what we do happen. It all comes together when we are challenging toxic groupthink, when we're challenging the collectivism that we hear from television. All of that stuff is done when we work together as a community, as a team. Because I'm going to illustrate that for you right now, okay? Because I tell you this all the time, that you guys send in great content, that you send in great recommendations for story leads. That's why I put that why do you think I put that email out? Okay? hello@aneighborschoice.com. I put it out not because we want to hear about, oh, David, I like what you said about Biden. You know, we all know that that's yesterday's news, right? We all know that it's easy to dunk on 20th century media like what I do, okay? That's the easy part about what I do. The more interesting part about what I do is that unlike other programs in broadcast media, we don't stay in that simple problem area, right? See, talk radio, TV, news, whatever, they spend all their time only focused on the problem. Did you see what Biden said today? Did you see what Trump said today? All this stupid stuff, right? And we have fun with that, right? We have fun. It's easy to dunk on 20th century media, right? We are creating 21st century media and beyond, right? So it's easy to dunk on low-hanging fruit, like Biden, like Kamala Harris. We can dunk all day on them, okay? What's more interesting is when you can have a program that does what we do, right? But we also provide solutions. You don't get that on talk radio land. You get, did you hear what Greta Thunberg said today? But they don't know how to talk about low temperature nuclear reaction. See, that's what we talk about. We get into the problems and the solutions. There's nothing else like it in broadcast media today. And I'm going to demonstrate it today, again, with this piece of this information. So I've been telling you for a long time to watch out for the vegetable oils. And many others have. There's a few online that have really become pioneers. But nobody in broadcast media really takes this story on and gets into it every single day with the experts, with the medical doctors, the nutritionists, and so forth, to explain just what these things do to our bodies. And we have suggested that these vegetable oils should be the primary elephant in the room of what we're removing consciously out of our bodies every single day by the food choices we make. It's so important, okay? Because I can talk to you about anthropology all day, and that's wonderful, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you're focusing on, only big abstract theory, but you're not getting into the day-to-day, what can you do to improve your life, then I think we're missing the picture. So we go higher than the shows that are supposed to be intellectual, and we go more relevant than the shows that are supposed to be broadcast-friendly, conventional information. We do it all because that's what happens when we are guided by principles. That's what happens when we're guided by personhood. It allows us to have the ability to take the toolkit of being suspicious, of groupthink, of challenging the sacred cows propped up by failed statist ideology, and then going into all kinds of topics and looking for applications to improve our life. So I've talked about how these vegetable oils are the biggest elephant in the room for the health problems that we have, the diseases of civilization. Processed flour, processed sugar, or also refined sugar are also problems. And we've had Tucker Goodrich on the program, who's talked about the in detail. He gets into more of the science papers and everything to provide the details about just what these things do to our bodies, how they're found in foods around us, why they're there, what the science shows about what they do. And one of the things that we've talked about that Tucker Goodrich was very early on was blogging about how these folks who were having severe cases of corona, based on what he was seeing, he hypothesized that it's going to be connected to a high accumulation of toxins directly caused by overconsumption of these PUFA vegetable oils, these omega-6 oils that we're putting into all the foods that we are used to, especially restaurant foods and junk food. And so he put that out early on his website, and we've talked about it before. And then we had a listener to my show send in a paper from Frontiers in Physiology, a peer-reviewed journal, that confirmed that they had examined folks who had had severe cases of COVID, and they had shown that the severe cases had a high amount of this toxin, this leukotoxin, that's associated with the consumption of linoleic acid. Okay? And so this, I won't use the listener's name because, we some people don't, they don't want to, go be in the public radio or whatever. But he had sent this saying, David, I've been enjoying your podcast. I'm especially grateful for information you share regarding seed oils. While I was trying to find more information on the subject, I came across this recent report describing epoxides of linoleic acid being implicated as biomarkers indicating severity of COVID infections. And then he linked to this Frontiers in Physiology. And this Tucker Goodrich, we talked about this last week. This is a fantastic study that confirms exactly what we said. That you accumulate these toxic vegetable oils, these seed oils that the government subsidizes with your expense, and then you find them in the chicken you eat, you find them in the pork you eat, you find them in restaurant cooked foods so often, you find them in, all these different junk foods that people are told go ahead and eat. And these things are associated with severe cases of, the ARDS disease that comes from having COVID. And so then, my point in saying this is that was a listener that sent that study. Now, we're going to have a New York Times best-selling medical doctor, someone who is another pioneer researcher into what these seed oils are doing to our health, named Dr. Kate Shanahan. We're going to be interviewing her later this week. You won't want to miss it. On neighborschoice.com. It'll start off as an online-only episode. So for those of you who are listening right now in the car or in radio, you're going to want to go to neighborschoice.com and bookmark that, where we'll be releasing Dr. Kate Shanahan's interview with me later in the week. She is someone who is another pioneer explaining what these vegetable oils, these omega-6 linoleic acid, fatty acids are doing to our body. And she was early in talking about what they're probably doing. Again, this was speculation on her part. Back last year, April 27th, 2020, we have this clip here from Dr. Drews, the medical doctor. He has a radio show and podcast and so on. And we're going to play this excerpt now of Dr. Kate Shanahan talking about this when this pandemic had just, started, right? A couple months ago, it was a month in basically. And she's trying to sound the alarm about watching out for the correlation of accumulating a lot of vegetable oils in your body and what she had speculated could be driving severe cases of coronavirus infection. Let's go ahead and hear this clip from Dr. Drew.
Just shocking how fast they fall apart. I mean, it is shocking.
So wow. Those are two separate things, right? One is the older folks, they still have
If we catch crab in Virginia and Maryland, do we file taxes?
I think we've got a
in each
YouTube
state?
ad.
With large catches
running
in
here.
both?
Hold on a
Yeah.
second.
a healthy metabolism, but their immune system is a little bit slower.
Mhm.
So they get sicker,
They get
but
sick.
eventually their immune system wins the battle.
That's right. That's exactly right. They get better. Not all. I mean, not all. There can be lots of complications and things.
Right, hopefully.
But it's watching the metabolic patients fall apart. Now, let's talk a little bit about the anti-phospholipid syndrome, which is this thing that I don't know how to speak about meaningfully. It's something that occurs rarely out in the world.
Say it in English.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to. It's essentially how should we describe it? A protein that's associated with hypercoagulability related to inflammation. Is that a way to say it? It occurs in.
Yeah, that's a good way to say it. It's like your body has created an antibody to itself, but
Right.
only like not something that's part of yourself on a daily basis, right? It's only something that your body makes under certain circumstances.
But well, I have seen it both in lupus patients where it's sort of more common, or rheumatic patients, but I've also seen it in metabolic patients like we're describing here, and have seen somebody go very bad with exactly what you're talking about, plus antiphospholipid. So how does that figure into this whole story?
Well, I think lipid in there refers to fat. And what I think is happening is that, because these polyunsaturated fatty acids that are the main ingredient in junk food and vegetable oils, they are lipids, and they are, in higher concentration in your bloodstream when you've had this kind of a diet, that your body can start to make antibodies that your immune system gets confused, and instead of making antibodies against foreign invaders, it makes antibodies against like your own body parts, like including your platelets, right? I think this is what the anti-phospholipid syndrome. Yes. It ends up causing blood clots because antibodies bind to components in your bloodstream that are supposed to be flowing, but these antibodies start accumulating around on the antibodies and start causing little teeny tiny clots, and then bigger clots and bigger clots. And that seems to be the immune system has made a mistake.
And there's something linking that kind of a phenomenon with COVID. So COVID's not activating the clotting system the way normal sepsis does. It's doing it through these inflammatory mediators, right? We think.
So what's happening is, I think what's happening is that the cell.
Steve.
We're going to hear this clip from Dr. Drew and with Dr. Kate Shanahan. Do we have the rest of it?
Let's give a commercial, yes.
Okay.
Steve does extensive
Cell membranes in the body of people who have this more severe metabolic syndrome are more loaded with like omega-6 type of polyunsaturated fatty acids that are the kind that when activated, when enzymes act on them, they become like clotting fat,
Okay, so hold on. So this is
inflammation.
I feel like we're going to the world of speculation, but let's go there. Which is, so you're saying that these omega-6 is in the cell wall of many of the cells in our body, let's say. How long would that take to come out if you went on a strict diet of none of these seed oils or polyunsaturated fats? Or would it?
Probably within a few weeks, because what happens is these are cells that your bone marrow is making every few days.
Okay.
And
so it's it's megakaryocytes.
A few weeks to make them.
It's platelets and megakaryocytes. So it's high turnover cells have this stuff in there. So all right. So there's that, and then I had a good question. And what was it? Damn. Can't remember. But you didn't answer the question about the statin. Let's say I'm working in an ICU. Should I stop my statin?
We'll cut it
by the way,
go ahead and cut the clip. So anyways, what we're seeing here with this is that in last year, 2020, April, right? When Dr. Fauci was such a stupid idiot at the time, he was still trying to tell us, put on a mask, don't put on a mask. He was just a dumb clown like always, right? Low information idiocy coming out of the stupid TV party. What we see here is good scientific speculation based on what Dr. Kate Shanahan knew about vegetable oils at the time and how they're going to be probably linked to the severe cases of COVID that everybody's been terrified. You've destroyed the entire world economy, the state and all the idiots that have voted for it, right? Destroyed the whole world's economy for this stupid stuff, stupid fear. Now, there's good fear, but then there's idiot fear, right? Idiotic fear, where you ruin everybody's lives because you're stupid and you watch TV and you just follow whatever the TV tells you. Oh, someone wears a coat and they say to do something. Okay, put on a mask, don't put on it. It's just stupid, paralyzing, idiotic fear. And I understand and I have sympathy for that because we can all get caught up in that kind of group thing. But just to go back here, I want to make this clear here. So she's telling you stay away from the omega-6s. It's probably going to be the causal thing connected to severe cases of COVID. She's telling you that. In this clip I just played from Dr. Drew's show on April 27th, 2020. Okay? So about a year, she's right, it's about a year. I sent her the link to this study today, and she posted it on Facebook. How coincidental, Dr. Kate says. It's almost the exact 1-year anniversary of my appearance on Real Time with Bill Maher. I had been invited specifically to warn his audience that chemistry predicts that seed oils were the reason people with COVID got ARDS and died. There was no data at the time to simply quote an article, which would have been easier, but now there is. Today, an article linking seed oils to ARDS came across my computer desktop. The study, linked below, shows that oxidized metabolites of the main PUFA in seed oils are found at billion-fold higher levels in patients with ARDS than in healthy controls. The authors briefly mention a strategy to prevent ARDS in COVID patients might be reduction of omega-6 rich diet, but they can't really emphasize it because what? Why? Because they're looking for a drug that reduces some tiny portion of the oxidized metabolite production. Under the conflicts of interest, you'll see, employed by whatever this company is, Icosis, which is developing a potent soluble epoxide hydrolase inhibitor for pain relief. And she says, thanks to David Gronowski for finding the article, but it's thanks to our listener, Leonard, for sending the article to me originally, and then me passing it on to Dr. Kate Shanahan. So what I'm trying to demonstrate in this segment is, one, it takes a community to get all this stuff going together. But two, if you're actually pursuing the truth, we can have a science-based program. That's what a neighbor's choice is. We combine love, empathy, nonviolence, and science. That's what we push all the time. And we were right, and all the stupid, idiotic TV party trash 20th century media, NBC, CBS, ABC, continue to be stupidly, idiotically wrong. And I will call those names out, idiotic stuff. I will use those words because people's lives have been totally ruined. People have suffered unnecessarily. 3 million people dead from this virus, and these idiots on TV could have been telling you to stop eating the omega-6s like Dr. Kate Shanahan was doing, and it would have had a tremendous effect. A tremendous effect. Do you understand what we're dealing with? We are dealing with the dumbest troglodyte era of media decay in our history, in the history of human society in the last modern centuries. To put so many people in mortal danger over idiotic, stupid blinders, these dumb people on television. I am so tired of these people. This is not a game. We're not talking about you're getting a rash. People are dying from the disease that don't need to be dying from it because of the idiotic, big pharma-owned trash media outlets. Turn these stupid outlets off. For God's sake, these are useless trash outlets. Useless. They are detrimental to your health on every level we can imagine. Psychologically, they're detrimental because they lie all the time about war, and they make you losing your empathy, teaching you to hate your neighbor, You know, you got Ashley Babbitt, this Trump supporter who was trespassing in Congress, shot point blank dead. Nobody does anything to investigate it, and they teach people. They are teaching people learned sociopathic behavior, to not even to have concern or care for why someone was shot point blank and killed for just trespassing. There was no reason to kill her. She was not using a weapon. And these stupid trash media outlets, these 20th century Luddite media outlets have trained generations of people here to hate their neighbors so much that they can't even muster normal, healthy human empathy and concern for why people are losing their lives when they shouldn't be losing their lives. If Ashley Babbitt, she shouldn't be trespassing, but there was no reason to be killing her. I don't care I am farther away from Trump than Nancy Pelosi is politically. But I actually have a human heart still in the way I talk, which is why I don't paper over the death of people because they have a different policy of the political view than I do. That's what barbaric, brute savages do. And that's what the TV party is training us to be brute savages. Brute, disgusting savages is what they're teaching us to be. Mayonnaise eating, margarine consuming, stupid savages. That's what they're training us to be, to have learned hate. They're teaching us and conditioning us with their trash hatred for people. They won't even cover the story of Ashley Babbitt's death because it's an enemy, and so therefore it's not worthy. This is disgusting. Every human being's life is worthy to be talked about with dignity. And when there's an unnecessary killing, then that needs to be properly investigated, and it needs to be covered. And if Ashley Babbitt had a television-approved ideology that she was marching into the Congress for, she would be lauded to this day as a sacred sacrifice. That is pathetic that we are allowing these Luddite troglodytes in the TV party to dictate to us the terms of conversation to such a point that they have destroyed and disgraced discourse beyond recognition. And they're getting us focused on such idiotic trivialities about what we're going to call our toxic seed oil sludge that government subsidizes for us to eat on the cheap. That's what they spend our time with. And meanwhile, we have real science happening on this show, and you're a part of it. You're a part of it. You're the one you put, I may have not found that study ever, We get all kinds of stuff, but if somebody hadn't sent me that link, then I wouldn't have sent it to Tucker Goodrich and Dr. Kate Shanahan, and then they get to confirm this is exactly what we were saying, and they were saying. Put it on them. It's them, because they were ahead of this before I was. I always knew the omega-6 oils. I'd heard they're bad, but I didn't know to what extent. I had been focusing on the carbs and sugar issue, but I hadn't looked at the seed oil as extensively until more recently, in the last year or so. But they were ahead on this, and if you'd watched this show, you would be ahead of this poor 20th century trash media cartel. It is filthy what they're doing to us. Filthy. Despicable. We'll take a quick break and return in just a moment. Live on A Neighbor's Choice. Let's go hear about a lawsuit.
That keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa.
Not attorney spokeswoman. Find the best coverage of Florida sports all in one place.
SportsTalkFlorida.com covers all the Florida teams you know and love with in-depth interviews, original coverage, and insight on the team that makes the news in Florida.
Whether it's the Bucks, Lightning, Rays, Jags, Dolphins, Marlins.
Sports Talk Florida has got you covered.
Or any of our college teams, like the Knowles, Gators, Bulls, Canes, or Knights. You can find it all at SportsTalkFlorida.com.
Sports Talk Florida has got you covered. SportsTalkFlorida.com.
Children as young as 12 years old now getting the green light from a CDC advisory panel to be able to get a Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine. The medical group approving Pfizer's double-dose shot today. The CDC's director still needs to sign off. Today at the White House, President Biden commending that and says it will give a boost to the battle in this pandemic, and he noted a new milestone.
Tomorrow, we'll cross 250 million vaccine shots administered since it took office. I think it's a pretty consequential achievement for the nation.
President Biden also formally announcing a partnership with school-based clinics and community centers around the country. With more than 1,000 gas stations reporting fuel shortages, the White House says it's working on supply issues until Colonial Pipeline is fully up and running again. The FBI blaming the hacking group DarkSide for that attack. Stocks tumbling today, the Dow closing down after a report showing a jump in inflation last month. Michelle Franson, ABC News.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. I'm David Gronowski here. You can email me hello@aneighborschoice.com. Call us at 727-587-1040. That's 727-587-1040 if you have a comment about the insanity of this Luddite, anti-science, garbage media, this tabloid nonsense that we hear from these failed corporate 20th century media outlets. We are in the 21st century. We have to leave their bad ideas behind completely. They are wasting our time. They are hurting people. They won't talk about the truth. You get it in little glimmers like that, you know? Dr. Kate Shanahan saying a year ago, almost, or past a year ago, right? Saying that we should be very mindful about getting these omega-6 vegetable oils out of our diet completely, so as a way to prevent severe cases of this ARDS that comes from COVID. And these losers at Facebook and Twitter and YouTube do everything they can to shadow block. People say they can't find my live stream. Do I care about Facebook and YouTube's algorithm? Absolutely, 100%. No, I don't. That's why we're going to build affiliate relations with all the stations we can find around the world even. We're not going to just do radio in America. We'll do radio wherever we can. And we'll do it online. We'll do it wherever we have to do to build the new media conversation that we all deserve. That means we're having empathy, nonviolence, personhood, discernment, and science. I titled the stream, if you're watching on YouTube and Facebook Live right now, I titled it, Bilk Back Better, right? That was the first part of the title today. And I saw some of you were asking in the comments, what does this mean? Somebody said it's hip, cool words. Okay, that's cool. Another says, Bilk back. Is this an accidental misspell of the title, or is this the new hip way of spelling it? No, it's my definition of what's going on. So for those who don't know, bilk, an informal word, means obtain or withhold money from someone by deceit or without justification, cheat or defraud. I believe that's what's happening in our economy today. Defrauding. Holding back money. And what's that? How do they hold back money? By destroying the purchasing power of your dollar. By now allowing you to have honest weights and measures, as the Bible proclaims, to have honest weights and measures. No, they want to promote debasing our purchasing power and then pat themselves on the back as if they did something for us by printing money out of thin air. Doing these little hacks. Oh, the pipeline's hacked. Oh, of course it's Russia. It's not China. I mean, how could it possibly be China? I mean, Joe Biden's own son, Hunter Biden, was dating and had a business relationship with the chief spy of China, and he was dating a girl who was working with the chief spy of China. There's no way it could possibly be China. I mean, who knows? I mean, we had Edward Snowden and Julian Assange release a lot of information that allowed people to see that our own intelligence groups have the ability to hack something and then make it look like somebody else did it. So who knows where the pipeline came from? You see? The hack. We can just assume, of course, that NBC and CBS and ABC, who lied through their teeth every single day telling us that the 2016 election was a Russian hack, using that language when they had zero evidence of any such thing, we could just assume that when they say it has something to do with something connected to Russia, that those same liars, the same WMD pushing liars, same liars that lied to you about going into Libya, they lied to you about going into Syria, they lied to you about going to Yemen, they lied to you that you needed to do a bailout of the banks. They lie all day long. But yeah, sure, this time they got it right, of course, 100%. Just assume. If somebody talks like this in reporting on the news, then it is credible. That stupid little tone they do. If they say, hello, this is NBC state media. We are here to report pipeline problem happened because Russia bad people. That stupid low information programming, that works on some people, but a diminishing amount of people. Because we're in the 21st century now, and that's 20th century stupid tactics. Okay? That's the troglodyte, barbaric, brutish form of media, and we're leaving that media era from the 20th century fast. But it's a little bit of a rocky travel as we go, right? Because a lot of people get hooked up into this stupid nonsense these people peddle. So who knows what caused the pipeline, but it's nice and convenient for, screwing people over back better, scamming people back better, whatever word you want to use, back better. They want to do a whole new infrastructure program. Lumber's going through the roof. Didn't Bill Gates want to do some kind of carbon sequestering bubbles in cement? Well, it'd be nice if lumber was so expensive that you'd have to try some of that green energy stuff, huh? Oh, wow. The little bubbles, carbon dioxide bubbles being sequestered in the concrete, like Bill Gates said the other day on TV we should do. It's very convenient how all this stuff just rolls out. And every time we want to have a conversation about the real fundamental problems and challenges that we can all solve together, neighbor to neighbor, these fools tell us, hey, look, Liz Cheney. And we're like, wait, what? Is there a war? What happened? Oh, no, headlines say. She's declaring war on Trump because she got ousted by another neocon, Kevin McCarthy. We're supposed to, oh, wow, oh, my goodness. I mean, how she's declaring war. She's making sure Trump's not going to be in the White House. It's like, okay, that's exactly what we want to talk about. One of your media darlings. Why is she a media darling? Because she's representative of a lot of special interests that want perpetual war, which also have an ownership and financial involvement with the media companies that push you to like Liz Cheney as the official token Republican that you're supposed to like. You see how stupid and obvious this stuff is? This has nothing to do with conspiracy. It has everything to do with predictable human nature. How power corrupts and absolute power corrupts. Absolutely. This has nothing to do with stupid theories. This is just obvious. We've been watching it our whole lives. Every fairy tale, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, they all say the same thing. And we get excited about it when we see it in a movie. And then when our television tells us, hey, Liz Cheney's your official Republican you're supposed to like. And you're like, wait, that's the person, the family that always wants war and maiming people and sending people with drone strikes onto wedding parties. That's the person that these stupid, Luddite, idiotic media outlets that tell us that they care about social justice, that's who they're pushing on us? It takes like half a millisecond to realize how stupid their whole little narratives are. And yet people are still stuck in there, right? And that's sad. It's embarrassingly sad. But we have to have empathy. We cannot stoop to the stupid anti-human behavior where you are denying people their human dignity like these media outlet ideologues always are trying to push into us. We must still have compassion and empathy and love for our neighbor, even when they're misled into loving Liz Cheney as the bastion of what you're supposed to support. by the official social justice parties. Social justice, neocons, Democrats. What a joke. It's embarrassingly sad that people still buy this, even at 1% of the population. But people want to be lied to. People want to believe in stupid fantasies. The biggest fantasy of all time is that we are somehow not religious, that our little modern sensibilities have made us so transcendent from superstition. That's such a garbage lie. People want to be lied to. They want to be a part of a cult where they can fit in. And the media provides that every day. And it's just so, it just takes half a nanosecond to realize the stupidity that they keep selling to people. But when you're eating toxic seed oils all day, maybe you have a hard time recalling and using, sharp mental discernment. But it's not that. It's something about the human heart, because people were thousands of years ago when priests would tell people we have to do this ritual sacrifice because the gods demand it thousands of years ago, or our ancestors said we had to do it whenever we're stressed or whatever, or the gods will get mad at us. Like, that's been happening a long time, and they weren't eating seed oils back then, and humanity went along with it. If there's one thing you need to learn about our society today, it's that we have not transcended that far away from the primitive sacred of which we came from. And this year and a half or whatever has been an extremely successful masterclass in opening people's eyes to that reality. That human beings are mimetic groupthink creatures. And that they can even know about mimetic theory and still be owned by that groupthink. And all of us, someone emailed me today wanting me to come on their show or something, a podcast, and they were saying, well, I like your show. I like your challenging tribalism, but I think I saw some tribalism with your show. And I'm like, of course. I mean, what do you expect? We're human beings. We're going to have tribal preferences in terms of, I prefer not to eat, vegan, right? I looked at the science, so I'm not part of that tribe. So if that makes me kind of fall back to another tribe or something more animal-based, then okay, right? But the ism is the problem. And when you can't even have that self-awareness, like I just demonstrated by saying, yeah, maybe I have a preference bias. When you can't do that, when you say, oh, the science says you must wear a mask, even though the science clearly says absolutely not, especially outdoors and if you're young and healthy. Now, again, if you're 80 years old and you've been eating seed oils your whole life because the government subsidized it with your labor, extracted your labor through the state and handed it as a subsidy to big soy and big corn and big whatever, and you've been eating their diet standard advice for decades, then yeah, you probably should wear a mask or whatever, do whatever you got to do. Because as the Frontiers in Physiology paper says, people who have that high amount of consumption of vegetable oils, omega-6 rich diet, as the article says, that's the correlation with those who have severe cases of ARDS, which is the thing that was killing so many people with COVID. Immune overreaction. Okay? But the fact is, look, it shouldn't be just, this show that I'm doing. Everybody should be talking about these things. We shouldn't silo our minds with, artificial separation of these different topics. We should bring it all together. I have an interview with Dr. Jordan Peterson. I did it on the day his book came out. We had a great discussion about Rene Girard and his interest in Carl Jung and how the connections can be made there. So we had those fun discussions, and those are very powerful and important discussions. But we should also talk about seed oils. We should talk about all the things that are affecting our life and bring it all together in a conversation where we can learn from one another. Somebody sent me content the other day, a frequent listener of the show, saying, hey, you know what? I think the big problem is our jaws are too small, and they have a great case for it. And I've seen some of this stuff before, that it's causing us to breathe with our mouths. Hey, it's hard to breathe with your nose, but you got to breathe in that fresh air of freedom every day, right? That's your birthright. But a lot of people have said sometimes that there's an epidemic of people having poor nutrition and poor breathing habits, and they're not having enough breast milk long enough, and therefore they have small, undeveloped jaws that they've been studying for a long time since the industrial age, and that's linked to sleep apnea. And when you have sleep apnea, you have a lack of health and rejuvenation of your cells, elimination of senescent cells, which are dysfunctional aging cells in the body, and on and on and on. So they're saying this is the big thing, even bigger than seed oil. So everybody wants to have, no, it's not that. Somebody else would tell me it's plastics, plastic toxins when you drink the water. That's the big thing, but you just got to do your research. Never get biased and narrow focused on one thing. I believe the big elephant in the room for chronic illnesses in America and the West and the world over seems to be correlated best with the big elephant being the consumption of these seed oils, these vegetable oils, and then the processed flour and refined sugar as a side issue as well. But that seems to be the big driver. But I'm sure that the small jaw lines that people have today is also a severe problem too. And I've heard that if people would eat more ancestrally, eating organ meats, it's okay to eat liver. You can eat liver. It's okay. Get you a healthy calf liver if you can't handle the stronger taste of an older beef liver. And eat that. It's got so much, it's the most super dense food. But we've been so numbed out, right? We're told blueberries are a superfood. This thing's a superfood. Moringa's a superfood. Arugula's a superfood, everything, and you can't process it. And then someone says liver, and you're like, what is that? That's quaint. That's weird. I heard that's a filter. That's got all kinds of toxins. No, it doesn't. Not if it's a healthy animal. It's not going to have that. And people think that's weird and quaint, but that's what you're here because your ancestors learned to prize organ meats whenever they would capture an animal and kill it in a hunt. And they gave the organ meats to the elderly and to nursing mothers, the ones that needed the most nutritiously dense minerals and vitamins available to them. So you want to argue with that and say, no, we should eat toxic seed oil sludge that's only been here for 150 years or something, then you can take that troglodyte path of anti-science quackery. That's your path, but you will take that path at your own detriment. There's so many things for us to explore today, and we have to do it without being blindsided and misled and demoralized by garbage political nonsense. I'm David Gornosky. You're listening to A Neighbor's Choice. We'll return in just a moment after this short break. Stay with us. Hello, this is David Gornosky with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality, grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a 6th-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code neighbor. Who is your neighbor? Dave and Wally are team drivers for Oakley Transport. One day, they came across a very serious accident on the highway. Some might pass on by, but Dave and Wally saw there was no time to waste. They jumped into action and saved 2 people's lives with moments to spare. That's the kind of courageous love we need more of today. It reflects the respected culture Oakley Transport develops with their driving professionals. CDLA licensed drivers. Join Oakley Transport today for a rewarding career. Visit oakleytransport.com. That's oakleytransport.com. Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck on a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187. Equal housing lender. Neighbor's Choice returns. David Gronowski here. So I wanted to also remind you, I just thought of this during the break, that if you want to help us get more radio affiliates, we're going to be doing more to push a national conversation in the radio industry to carry this program. And I have people who are veterans in the industry. They say, David, why do you have to call it a Neighbor's Choice? Can't you call it the David Gronowski Show? And I said, no, that's 20th century media. This is 21st century media. We don't have time for that. It's a Neighbor's Choice. Emphasis on the Can't say Neighbor's Choice. Sounds like an insurance company. And if you say Neighbor's Choice, that's fine, but it's got to have that A, and it's got to have that ridiculous article, the letter A at the beginning. But if you have an interest, maybe, you're listening to this show online or you're on the podcast or whatever, and you want to have this show on terrestrial radio. So all you have to do is get in the car, instead of putting up the podcast and hitting play on your latest episode of the show, you can just literally turn on the car, and the radio station that carries my show is just playing right on time, right when you like it. Then you can be a part of this revolution. You can go to your local radio station, email them, call them, and say, have you heard of the most electrifying show in media? Of course not. It's electrifying. Shocking. Check out A Neighbor's Choice. You've got to carry this show. We do it live weekdays 4 to 6 Eastern, but we can carry it on delay. So be a part of the fun. We're going to have a conversation with the talk radio industry. They need to shake things up. Don't you think so? Aren't you tired of hearing about what Biden did today for the next 4 hours on every other show? It's boring. It's boring. We'll talk about it. We do. But there's so much bigger stuff to talk about as well to make for a well-rounded program. The biggest story of the day, of course, is that Ellen DeGeneres is to end her daytime talk show in 2022. That's what Variety has to tell you. Huge. Huge event. Gasoline pipeline shut down, tests Biden administration, AP reports. Well, they want to, it's in their interest to make a mess out of this. And then to come up with some solution. Oh, we got to pass this Green New Deal and start doing all this fake green energy. And remind me to put together my next thing I want to do about this Green New Deal thing. I keep talking about that movie, Planet of the Humans. Who here has seen Planet of the Humans? Have you seen the movie Planet of the Humans by Michael Moore? You got to check it out. It is written, it's filmed and produced by left-wing people, but they're honest about the scams of the green industry. Nobody wants to talk about nuclear. Everybody wants to talk about wind and solar and all this biomass stuff. This movie just roasts it apart. And I want to compile a few short clips from that film for those of you who won't watch the movie. I will play these clips in a future episode of A Neighbor's Choice, and we'll go through step by step how this green industry is a scam. See, I'm telling you, the conservative movement is all about reacting. That's why we're not a conservative show. We don't react. We set the pace. We critique the garbage from the reactionary 20th century media that's got its old stinky tentacles holding us back in the 21st century. But, we critique it, but we also want to set the conversation. See, the right says, hey, we don't want a Green New Deal. We kind of like what we have. Yeah, where we're subsidizing these giant energy companies with our tax dollars, extracting your labor for easy profits. Yeah, like we like the status quo of having to be involved in every Middle Eastern conflict, sticking our heads in every civil war known to man just to kind of maintain our little geostrategic role in that region because of the oil and everything that we like to have attached to our dollar supremacy. Come on. See, the right just said, no, don't go so fast. That's boring. We don't have time for reactionary stuff. We are progressive on this show. We're more progressive than the progressives, so-called progressives. They're reactionaries. So that's why we talk about 24/7 solar panels with Dr. Yu. That's why we talk about there are physics that explain anti-gravity. The idea that we could have, oh, that's a scary word. No, it's not a scary word. Again, we have been conditioned to be like so anti-science in our thinking. It's ridiculous. We talk about low temperature nuclear energy, what they used to call cold fusion. Oh, another scary word. Who cares? Who cares? Luddites are always going to attack you when you're trying to do something awesome. That's what they do. That's their role in life. They're called antagonists. You see what I mean? Antagonists slow you down to make you better. There are people in this world that their only real role, unfortunately, they don't have to do it. I guess they have a free will. They could choose to not be. But their job is just to be an antagonist. You want to do something special? Nah, that's not going to happen. You know? You want to say, hey, we don't need to do high chamber government-sponsored nuclear fusion, millions of degrees temperature. We don't have to do that to have nuclear fusion. Oh, that's not possible. My textbook told me that. Okay. You go ahead and be a little antagonist. You just react. That's fine. We need people like that. It helps us sharpen our resolve, right? You give us fuel to change the world. But the adults in the room are going to continue to just get the facts, get the science, get the technology, get the information, put it all together, and just keep going. That's what America is at its best. That's when America is at its best. And we're going to continue to promote that conversation. So we tell you, somebody asked Dr. Kate, what are the alternatives of eating seed oils? You eat the oils that taste better. Butter, ghee, coconut oil. Who says I want a biscuit with, margarine slathered all over it? Cottonseed oil, garbage or whatever, right? You want to smother that thing with that cottonseed garbage versus grass-fed butter. Who says I'll pick that cottonseed oil butter biscuit? Nobody does. They want the grass-fed biscuit once they try the difference. See, we're going to provide solutions over and over and over again. The conservatives say, hey, critical race theory or critical theories in the schools. My goodness, ban it. And I say ban government schools. See, we always go better because we're here for the progress. Not for the sake of itself, but because it's beautiful and elegant to make the world a better place. And we know that monopoly government and monopoly subsidies and monopoly education and monopoly food advice like government provides is old. It's failed. It's failed us on every level. And the whole thing is falling apart in front of us. It's a volatile time to be a human being, but it's an exciting time. You should be excited. I am. This show's about getting things done. I want this show to not just be a show that talks about the problems, but because it existed, it helps facilitate the solutions actually coming to reality. We'll be back with more, including Carrie Baldwin, when we continue in the next hour. But for now, Godspeed.
Your home for news, talk, and information. 1040 WHBO Pinellas Park. Tampa Bay's all new News Talk 1040.
It's the only way I get news.
From ABC News, I'm Michelle Franzen. Children between 12 and 15 years old, the latest age group added to the eligibility list to get a Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine. A CDC advisory panel making that recommendation today. President Biden calling it another big step in the fight and praised doctors.
Because of them, nearly 17 million more Americans are eligible to get vaccinated, and now.
ABC's Andy Field has more on today's vote.
At the CDC,
the motion passes.
That step allowing 12 to 15-year-old Americans to get the Pfizer vaccine. Moderna and Johnson & Johnson likely to follow soon. The White House saying the government will make it easier for those pre- and early teens to get their first shot at home and the second somewhere else if they're away at camp. Andy Field, ABC News, Washington.
President Biden says he's spoken to Israel's prime minister, who said Israel has a right to defend itself amid the barrage of rockets fired by Hamas. Israel hitting back today with more airstrikes in Gaza.
The Israeli army says it has killed a number of senior commanders in Hamas's general staff in Gaza, fighters who are close to military chief Mohammed Deif. The claim, if true, sure to escalate the violence here and put off any hopes of an Egyptian-mediated ceasefire. Jordana Miller, ABC News, Jerusalem.
The health ministry in Gaza says 65 Palestinians, including 16 children, have been killed so far. Liz Cheney voted out as House GOP conference chair today. Cheney says that won't stop her from criticizing former President Trump's false claim that the election was stolen.
The party is in a place that we've got to bring it back from, and we've got to get back to a position where we are a party that can fight for conservative principles, that can fight for substance. We cannot be dragged backward by the very dangerous lies of a former president.
A vote on Cheney's replacement expected later this week. Reports of gas shortages continue in states after that ransomware attack shut down the Colonial Pipeline. It could be back up and running by the end of the week. You're listening to ABC News.
Maybe you can relate to this. A lot of people think they're stuck with their health plan. It costs too much, or for whatever reason, they just don't like it. The great news, you are not stuck with it. There is a choice. It's called MediShare, and you could save so much. The typical savings for a family is $500 a month. Major difference maker. This is the affordable alternative to health insurance. And just to give you a little more info about MediShare, it's a Christian healthcare sharing ministry. It's worked beautifully for 26 years, has more than 400,000 members, and they've shared over $3 billion of each other's medical bills. So yes, they can help share your needs too. So you're not stuck. There's an excellent alternative, whether you're single or married, you got a family. MediShare is super flexible. You can choose an option that works for you and start saving lots of money. You can join anytime. They're great to talk to. No pressure. Call 877-26-BIBLE. That's 877-26-BIBLE. 877-26-BIBLE.
The COVID crisis in India is still spiraling out of control. Cases now surging in small towns and villages across the country where there's little or no access to health care. India officially recording over 348,000 new cases and over 4,100 deaths in just the past 24 hours. In Orange County, California, a plan to offer people a digital record of their vaccinations now on hold following protests by anti-vaccine activists.
Outside the Orange County Board of Supervisors meeting, hundreds of people pushing back against any kind of vaccine passport.
This isn't Nazi Germany. We should have the freedom. The Jews had passports. Look what that led to.
Because of the crowd, supervisors pausing the plan and highlighting it was never meant to be mandatory. The county wants to offer optional digital records of vaccinations instead of relying on a paper card. Supervisor Katrina Foley.
I don't think this group really cares about this issue. This group is part of a movement that is against the governor.
Alex Stone, ABC News.
A major internet discount available to millions of Americans starting today. Those who qualify can apply for relief for their monthly internet bills. The $3.2 billion program is part of the pandemic relief package. That program will shave about $50 off of your bill, and you can enroll through an approved provider. This is ABC News.
Is a new war with China coming? Even Henry Kissinger is warning Americans. Now, Newsmax's Grant Stinchfield looks at the dangerous red dragon and shows how Trump's policies worked. Tune in tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern to see Stinchfield's series, The Dangerous Dragon. Newsmax TV is on all major cable systems. If you don't get it, tell your cable operator you want it. Or download the free Newsmax app on your phone and start watching right away. Millions are watching Newsmax. So should you.
I'm Michelle Franzen, ABC News.
Hello, this is David Kronosky with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a sixth-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR.
A lot has happened that has prevented us from feeling like a community. Well, now that things have opened up a bit, let's get back to basics. As a foundation for our neighbors and family, God is a big part of bringing us together. It's time to get back to church, uplifting, supporting, and loving neighbors that are cherished, not only now, but for eternity. Come on, you can use it. The Welcoming Committee is there every Sunday. See you soon.
From the heart of Central Florida, you're listening to the most electrifying show in media, A Neighbor's Choice. And I'm your host, your neighbor, David Kronosky. So glad to be back with you live in Radio Land, where the problems we have, they're not that hard to solve. We got to roll up our sleeves and solve them ourselves. They're so simple, you don't need a rocket scientist, but just in case, tomorrow we'll have Chief Science Advisor, physicist, and rocket scientist Dr. Yu in the house for all of your science news. We've been doing that now for what? Almost 3 years. Science and You is what we call that segment. You can find it on aneighborschoice.com, where we get into all the news. We get into the, they say, oh, don't talk about hard, deep science stuff with broadcast radio. And I hate that. That's the thing that irritates me about this, is that everybody wants to placate and dumb everything down and patronize people, especially in broadcast media, like TV and radio. But radio's different. Radio is a longer form typically, right? TV, you got like a half a second to say, hello, and you're off the show, right? But radio, it's typically a longer formatted program, and it is a quicker pace than a podcast where you're supposed to say, hello, welcome to my podcast. And you're supposed to talk about stuff that nobody knows anything about for the first 30 minutes and then about your life and then get into the story. So it's not like that. But at the same time, it does afford us, and I do believe we should just give the deep, good, rigorous science to the broadcast and not sequester it only for podcasts and stuff like that, right? So that's why we bring it to radio live with you every day. We're not afraid of making mistakes. We've got too much work to do in such little time to get it all done. Let's look at some of the comments on our YouTube stream here. Michael Fox says, learn the trivium well. Okay, that's cool. That trivium is, I guess, a reference to the classical model of education, right? We have Lucas says, yes, Dr. Kate Shanahan wrote a great book called Deep Nutrition. Yeah, we'll be talking with Dr. Kate Shanahan later this week. Benjamin says, your viewers are increasing daily. I've been telling everyone I know to tune in. We need more of you in the daily discussions, responsible reporting. I thank you. Well, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being an advocate of what we're doing here. Lucas says, you're probably right, David. It is probably the lowest hanging fruit, seed oils, but all in all, we are being assaulted by the industrial world. It is literally contorting us. And I agree with that, but I would just say it's not the industrial world itself. It's the dumb ways of doing industry, right? For example, everybody's worried about carbon and pollution, but if we had understood that maybe we need to rethink how we do nuclear energy, we could have had safe, low-temperature nuclear energy, which would not be dangerous if there was a problem, wouldn't create Fukushima stuff and that kind of thing. And we could have tremendous progress with that. And that would have eliminated the pollution problem. It would have eliminated our dependency on Middle Eastern wars and conflicts to protect our energy, right? Another commenter says, so unique again, David. You leave me thinking from completely previous unseen perspectives every time I listen in. Thank you. Another one says, Scott says, every day the future looks bleaker for the old way and brighter for the new. How cool is it to be alive right now? I'm so hyped. I am too. It's a rocky thing. And, you know, sometimes you get sad because I talk about mimetic theory and I talk about how human beings imitate and we copy and we don't know we're copying and we go along in this sheep-like behavior. And I've been talking about it and applying it, and I see it and I see it and see it. But when you see it so brazenly bad, right? And you see so many people suffering because of weaponized ignorance, weaponized groupthink. It's hard, right? If you have an empathy, it's hard. It's hard to numb out from that. I don't want to numb out from my empathy. Do you want to numb out from your empathy? I don't want to. Then I'll just be a troglodyte, NBC hack or ABC, CB. I mean, those people, and I don't want to, look, I don't want to make it personal. I know there's great people that work for there, but I mean, my goodness, how could you just get it wrong on everything? Wrong on nutrition, wrong on what money is, wrong on what debt is, wrong on what spending is, wrong on how to solve, diseases, wrong on red meat consumption, wrong on war, wrong on every war they sell. I mean, they're just wrong on everything. At what point you say, okay, this is not you guys are just willfully ignorant. You're devoted to a cultic belief in the worship of the state. And that's making you get us so much misinformation. And you think if you say it like, good evening, in other news, that we're supposed to believe, oh, wow, it's true. He said it like that. Wow. It's so dumb, man. We're so tired of that stuff. That would have worked in 1932. It doesn't work now. You see? We're tired of the stinky microwave fascism and communism. We don't want that stuff. We're going somewhere better. Alan McLeod tweeted out, wow, first it was the woke CIA ad. Now it is a super woke animated army recruitment ad featuring a lesbian wedding, an LGBT rights parade, and women shattering stereotypes by joining the world's largest killing machine. And there's a new ad out about this girl who's so proud that she was raised by two moms and now she's doing, missiles or something off in the Middle East, about people of color being occupied. But that's okay because look, kids, it's woke. It's so dumb. And they think people can't see this. I believe the vast, vast majority of America will see this and is seeing this and will continue to see how ridiculous and stupid this whole thing. I think that the mask has dropped and these people that have acted like, oh, we're just news outlets. No, you're not. You carry water for unnecessary war. There's nothing more disgusting and barbaric and primitive and pathetic than that. There's nothing. Let's forget all their stupid crap that they've lied about nutrition. They've lied about medicine for big pharma ads that and the stuff. The biggest thing is that if you can't even get basic things like don't go to war for no reason. If you can't get that right, which the New York Times does not get right ever, until the war goes bad, like Iraq, like years after it's already a mess. They're like, oh yeah, George W. Bush is so bad. Get rid of him so we can get Obama and start more wars. It's so dumb, And they think that we can't see that, but we can see it. You can see it. And I'm excited because that means we have the potential to grow. Humanity can go forward. You have to go through growth, rough patches, right? It's uncomfortable. Transitionary stages don't look good, right? You look at the fossil record, some weird stuff out there. And we're in a transitionary stage and it doesn't feel right, right? But you just got to keep pushing through. Jesus said, pray when you pray as if it's already happened. So we're just going to keep talking about what's happening because it's going to happen. And that means truth is winning and truth will always continue to prevail. It doesn't mean that people won't be hurt. We can't give you a Pollyanna. There are millions of people who have had a horrible effect on their body, millions and billions actually. You saw ABC, the trash media outlet, in the news break. If you're listening on radio and video stream, they said, oh, India. They're just trying to push statist medicine, monopoly medicine onto India. They don't tell them, but we are really encouraging them to all stop eating the seed oils that we convinced them to adopt into their diet. They don't tell them that. Even though I just showed you the science that says that's absolutely a first low-hanging fruit you could do that would be a huge, huge benefit. Within weeks, Dr. Kate Shanahan said you can have significant improvement in your ability to deal with that virus if you're young and relatively healthy and haven't had too many seed oils your whole life. But even those folks could have a better outcome possibly. That's what the science from Frontiers in Physiology suggests. Glenn Greenwald responds to Joe Scarborough. Joe Scarborough said, when Cheney's liberal critics place her support for democracy alongside her other positions, they implicitly endorse the same calculation made by her conservative opponents that the rule of law is just another issue. And Glenn Greenwald, progressive journalist, says anyone who thinks Liz Cheney is motivated by some sort of sacred devotion to the rule of law after everything she's spent the last 2 decades supporting is either extremely ignorant or extremely dishonest. In Scarborough's case, of course, it's always a shifting mix of both. So true. Arthur Bloom, who writes at the American Conservative, says they didn't do a vote. They didn't do a voice vote. He's referring to the Liz Cheney vote. They didn't do a voice vote because they're afraid of Trump. They did it because they're afraid of donors from Cheney's side of the party. And Tho Bishop, who's been on the show many times, the GOP vote on Liz Cheney was a voice vote, and they struck down an attempt to get it recorded. This goes to the problem with the congressional GOP. They are cowards. A cowardly GOP will continue to lose to political enemies that are willing to stand for something, no matter how bad that something is. Kevin McCarthy, the dim-witted man that he is, wants a GOP that pays lip service to MAGA but continues the same policies desired by the corporate class. He wants to project false unity rather than to seriously address what his party actually stands for. This is why he protected Liz Cheney in January. It's why he continues to suck up to corporations that hate Trump voters. It's why he wants to promote people like Tim Scott over Ron DeSantis. The GOP will continue to be useless in Washington so long as the right settles for Kevin McCarthy. We need a GOP that rejects corporate money, that fights for America First values, and is driven by a Jacksonian push to abolish the major sources of corruption in our society: the Fed, the IRS, the regulatory state, and the woke military-industrial complex. So there's a lot of change afoot. Everything's in flux, it feels like. But the truth will always win. I believe that. I know that. I've seen it. Jesus was in a time, you got to remember, when Jesus came in and said, the first shall be last and the last shall be first, he was walking around in a community run by a world empire, the likes of which the world had never seen. He was walking in a time in which the first would be the political rulers and their crony allies, and the last would be those who had affliction or disability or handicap. And if you wanted to give a screenshot of what that looked like that Jesus was walking in when he said those words, that the first shall be last and the last shall be first, he was living in a time in which for a long, long time, for thousands of years, things had stayed static. If you had a disease, if you were a minority, if you were a person with physical frailty or weakness, if you had a disability, you were treated less than human, to say the least. You were considered fodder for people's entertainment. You didn't have rights. If you went to a theater where you would see the stratification of society displayed for you, as Jesus probably could have seen around his community in the Greek influence world that he was in, you would see a community in which the best seats in the house were given to the first, which were the political rulers, the governor, Caesar, or his cronies around him that funded his interests. And if you were the least of these at the time, if you were a person who had frailty and handicap and you wanted to go to the theater, you would be in trouble. Perhaps they wouldn't let you in. Perhaps they would laugh at you. Perhaps they would throw you into the lion's den or the gladiatorial arena to be used as food for wild animals, for people's laughter. Imagine the groupthink that has to be baked into society, that people are laughing and cheering on the devouring of a human being in front of them. That happened. That's your human species in front of you. And Jesus saw that history. He saw that world. He saw through it. And today, 2,000 years later, you go to a theater and it's simulated action. There's no physical torture happening in the movies. And the best seat in the house is now reserved for the handicapped. The best seat, the best eye view, in a movie theater is given to those who have a handicap. So 2,000 years later, as stupid as humans continue to be, real progress is afoot. Real progress is afoot. Now, if you're a politician, you can be brought down by a mere accusation of impropriety, of someone that Me Too or something, unless you're connected to the establishment like Cuomo, and then it's a little harder, but it's possible still. So there's real progress in history that's impacted because of a person creating a personhood revolution 2,000 years ago, and it will continue to rapidly increase because the gospel spreads in this interesting connected way with the development of technology, with media technology and decentralized media technology. It accelerates the spread of the gospel infection in society. We'll take a break and return in just a moment, live on A Neighbor's Choice. David Gronowski here. Let me tell you about a man named Gabriel. Every day, Gabriel puts on his boots and drives across America to make sure our store shelves stay stocked with the food people count on. See, Gabriel served our country overseas. He knows that America stands for freedom, quality, and caring for others the way we would like to be treated. That's why when Gabriel saw food shelves getting low during the pandemic, he hit the road as a driver with Oakley Transport. In the land of the free, where no one should go hungry, we need heroes like Gabriel to help keep America fed. CDLA driving professionals. Join Oakley Transport today. Keep America fed. Visit oakleytransport.com or call them today at 1-877-8-TANKER. That's 1-877-8-TANKER. Are you ready to transform your career? Jess Smith was too. She was stuck on a job that was controlling her life, consuming her free time, and offering little opportunity for growing her pay. Then she found FinTech Mortgage Association, and she never looked back. FinTech Mortgage Association makes home lending simple, and they take care of home buyers like family. Using technology to make everyone's life easier, FinTech Mortgage Association equips each of their loan solutions architects with the tools they need to build a career with a schedule they control, a product they can take pride in, and an earning potential that is life-changing. Unleash your true potential. Join FinTech Mortgage Association. Visit finmay.com. That's FINMAE.com. You're in charge now. NMLS ID 1492187, Equal Housing Lender.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman.
Welcome back to A Neighbor's Choice. David Gronowski here, your host. Email me hello@aneighborschoice.com. That's hello@aneighborschoice.com. Drop us a comment on our YouTube stream. Search for David Gronowski on there. Facebook video stream, we have it there. And our website, aneighborschoice.com. You can also call in at 727-587-1040. Let's look at a few more news. Pretty soon we'll hear from Carrie Baldwin in the next segment. But as we continue, I saw this image. I don't know what outlet it is. That Natalie Degeneres posted. It says new mast carving in St. Albans Cathedral. It's look like a little gargoyle with a mask on. So it's a little cult, is what she said. Jack Posobiec, journalist at One America News, says, good morning. We have historic levels of illegal aliens pouring across the border, 2008 levels of inflation, gas stations running dry, Wuhan superviruses, Middle East exploding, and a president who goes to bed by 10. That's well said. Another image shows a picture of a woman with a ton of microphones. It says Liz Cheney, and then another guy sitting at a panel with no microphones, and it says Gaza war, high inflation, gas shortage, rising unemployment, and border crisis. So it's another illustration of that point. I thought this meme that was going around that Jordan Smith posted on Facebook said, instead of saying I trust science and experts, how about just being honest and saying I don't have the cognitive capacity to actually think critically for myself, and so I default to believing whatever most people believe so that I never have to feel as dumb as I actually am. That was a little tough there, but I think that's accurate, isn't it? I think that's kind of accurate for a lot of folks. These people say, I trust the science, and all they're doing is they're literally just regurgitating a slogan that means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. It means I have a religious devotion to people who look like they have authority that the television tells me to trust. As the meme says, instead of saying I trust science and experts, how about just being honest and saying I don't have the cognitive capacity to actually think critically for myself, and so I default to believing whatever most people believe so that I never have to feel as dumb as I actually am. That's a herd mentality. And there's safety in a herd. It feels safe. But when a herd is running off of a cliff, it does not end in safety, does it? It ends in failure. NPR, the state media outlet, reports immigration agencies ordered not to use term illegal alien under new Biden policy. See, he's a little McWoke corporate fascist. He wants to use all of his policies to bring in millions of more people displaced by his horrible foreign policy of neocolonialism and rigged trade deals that have totally pillaged these people's countries. But then he wants to placate to them and placate to, more importantly, the elitist, rich white liberals that he is his financial base for his fundraising. He wants to placate to them and say, hey, look how arrived we are. Yes, I still have all the crooked trade deals that destroyed their homeland's jobs. I still have all the same wars that displaced the Yemeni and the Libyans and the Syrians. But look, I don't use the term illegal alien. I mean, it's so dumb. What a joke. Pathetic 20th century failure. Get off the stage. So tired of these people. Ashley Babbitt's family planning to file $10 million lawsuit against Capitol Police officer who shot her. That's according to Louis Cassiano and Fox News. So that's, hopefully there's some justice and answers as to why this person has been tried to be forgotten just because she had the wrong politics according to the Uniparty and the TV party, which lies us into perpetual war. So it's just sad, to see people cheapen life because of their pathetic need to have power and belonging to a herd. And CNBC says inflation speeds up in April as consumer prices leap 4.2%, fastest since 2008. So they're finally acknowledging the dangers of inflation, but a little late to the party. But hey, people need to be mindful of what's going to happen when you destroy the purchasing power of your dollar. We'll take a break and hear from Carrie Baldwin. We'll get into health vaccine passports and all that good stuff. Talk about the pastor in Canada who was arrested. We'll continue in just a moment, live on A Neighbor's Choice.
Politics these days are just that, politics. Pathetic discussions about things that don't matter.
Hi, this is
Pandemic,
Joseph
crime,
with
and economic
WHBO,
disparity
for
march
the
on.
David
That's
Gronowski
why
Show.
you need a balanced approach to news, business, and entertainment. In the state of Florida.
About 2 minutes. What I'll do is I'll put your microphone on live and just hang on for us. David will address you.
The sources, articles, video, and audio that will be a must daily check-in from your laptop or mobile device. Take a look at newstalkflorida.com. Today's news and entertainment with a Florida.
Just 2 days after the FDA granted emergency use authorization for Pfizer's COVID-19 vaccine in 12 to 15-year-olds, the CDC signed off on the decision. President Biden says it's a latest step in a vaccine rollout that will help end the pandemic.
About 3 million COVID-19 cases have been reported in kids under 17 years of age. And teenagers can spread it to their friends, to their siblings, to their parents, and to their grandparents.
Many states will be shipping doses to pediatricians and even to schools. Gas stations from the southeast to the mid-Atlantic states are running out of fuel, with the Colonial Pipeline, a major supplier to the region, shut down for a 6th day. The president meeting at the White House today with congressional leaders looking for a compromise on his infrastructure proposal. Republicans are insisting on a much smaller package with no tax hikes to pay for it. Stocks pulled back again today, on track for their worst week in 6 months. The Dow was down more than 600 points. Daria Albinger, ABC News.
Hello, David Gronowski here. You're listening to A Neighbor's Choice. We're back. We're live. You can call in at 727-587-1040 or drop us a comment on our YouTube or Facebook video stream. Always great to have your questions, your comments. Now we're joined by a guest who's been on the program before. She's a writer for Mere Liberty courses, as well as a contributor at the Libertarian Christian Institute. We have with us Carrie Baldwin. How you doing, Carrie?
I'm good, David. How are you?
Great. And I wanted to have you on because, you know, it's a topic that we need to really focus on. You are a Christian libertarian. We have a lot of Christian libertarians that listen to this program. We have a big tent. We have folks that are not so libertarian, or maybe they're not Christian, but they like the values that we're exploring together. And this issue of the vaccine passports, the health passports, is something that has sparked a lot of conversation online and a lot of passion and emotion. So how do you approach this issue? There's some folks that say, if it's, you know, government mandated, we can oppose it. If it's a, you know, collection of corporations getting together to try to put something together, you can't have an opinion about it. Where do you stand on this?
Well, I think it's really interesting that, I mean, technically speaking, on principle, any private property owner has a right to say, you know, you have to be vaccinated in order to come on my property. You know, that concept has been compared to the no shirt, no shoes, no service concept that we've come to accept. I think the difference, though, has to do with the fact that no private business would have ever so severely restricted their potential target demographic down to people willing to share with the store owner or the store manager or even the store clerk what their medical status is, what medications they've taken, unless they had some sort of assurance that they weren't going to lose their customers. And so, you know, when we're talking about vaccine passports, we're not simply talking about private business owners deciding, hey, we're going to, you know, require that you be vaccinated in order to come on our property. We're talking about people who are making this in light of the coercive techniques, the misinformation that is coming from the government, the obvious propagandizing. Well, I think it's obvious anyways. And so we have to understand this in context. I mean, it's a bad idea if the state does it. It's a bad idea if the state coerces big business to do it. If it was a completely voluntary situation, I can't imagine anybody actually putting that into practice in any sort of successful way.
And also there's the point that, again, there's a kind of a simplistic perversion of libertarianism that suggests that you're not allowed to condemn anything that happens if it's a market or a business choice. You know what I mean? And that's kind of a stupid, that has no basis in the actual principles being explored in the actual theory, right?
Right. That's what the freed market is all about. It allows the consumer to regulate instead of politicians regulating, instead of big corporations getting together and regulating out their competition. So, the consumer having something to say about the way things operate is definitely a feature of the freed market. And so, anybody who wants to, suggest not shopping at, say, a grocery store chain that has implemented this, vaccine passport requirement, they're well within libertarian principles to oppose that. The freed market isn't just businesses getting to operate the way they want to. It's also the consumer interacting with the businesses either directly or indirectly through public opinion.
Mm-hmm. Now, you shared a tweet by Dr. Naomi Wolf, who's on the left. She said, I compared vaccine passports to the health passports and ethnic validation papers used by National Socialists in early 1930s to divide population into pure versus impure. It's the same concept. State divides clean from unclean based on biological claims. Read Rise of the Third Reich. What do you think of that? Do you think that's some people, the media is always breathlessly disparaging anybody who associates this concept of a state-involved health passport with parallels to other authoritarian controls that we've seen in history.
Right. Well, no, I absolutely agree with Naomi Wolf on this. And if you, when we think about Nazi Germany and Hitler and the Third Reich, what we think about is, the Holocaust. We think about racism. We think about ethnic division. But very few people talk about how that came to be to begin with. And so what Naomi is pointing out, and I heartily agree with her, is that the Third Reich came about because of this idea of cleanliness. And I mean, not just cleanliness, like Hitler was literally trying to rid Germany and ultimately the world of impure things, disease, pestilence, that sort of thing. And as soon as he identified the Jews as being, unclean in some way, then people felt free to belittle them, deride them, attack them verbally, attack them, in very abusive ways, snitch them out to the state and that sort of thing. And it was a buildup. And so, lots of people, it's easy to look back on history and say, how the heck did Germany get that way? Like, how the heck did the Germans allow Hitler to wipe people off the face of the planet? Well, they did it through this fear of sickness, this fear of illness, which is, the reason why I came on your show to begin with last year was to talk about the fear of viruses and how that is a deep-seated fear in the human psyche. So I think Naomi Wolf is absolutely spot on. We have to see the writing on the wall. And, in spite of our fears of a pandemic, which can be legitimate, we can't allow the state to go overboard and start taking away our freedoms as a result.
Now let's speak about from the Christian side of things, for those who are Christians or in the faith community. What is the, Christians, some Christians will say, nope, you just got to do, render unto Caesar. Therefore, if they say you need a passport to to fly or whatever you got to do with all these health information and all this stuff, that you're going to have to do it, and there's nothing else about it. What do you say to that?
Well, we have Romans 13, but Romans 13 is either descriptive or prescriptive. In other words, it either tells us how a just state operates, or it tells us that all states are just. And if all states are just, then we have to assume that Hitler and Nazi Germany was a just state in spite of all of it. And that is absolutely contradictory to everything in Scripture. So if it's prescriptive, then what we know of Romans 13 is that there's a particular way in which civil governance is supposed to operate. And, even the verse that immediately precedes Romans 13 is Romans 12:21, which says, do not become overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. And there's also nothing in Scripture that actually delineates every single role of civil governance, or rather it restricts it to only certain aspects of society. So concepts like public health or education, healthcare, none of those things are actually prescribed in Scripture as being something that falls under the jurisdiction of civil governance. What civil governance deals with, strictly speaking, is rights violations, and requiring a human being, an image bearer of God, to not follow their conscience, to not exercise their Christian liberty, to force them to have to inject their bodies with something that may or may not be good for them, absolutely doesn't fall within a biblical view of civil governance. Whether you view the state to be legitimate or not, that's just not in there. So I would say that Christians who are saying whatever the state calls for, we have to obey, has not done their due diligence in understanding what the Bible has to say about the role of civil governance.
We're speaking with Carrie Baldwin, who's a writer for libertarianchristians.com as well as Mere Liberty. I want to get into this story, speaking of the Christian response to the laws going on. There was the Calgary pastor in Canada, Artur Pawlowski, and I shared his video of him, this Polish pastor who, refused to shut down during the mandated. The mandate was no matter what church size you have, your building, you can only have 10 people gather. And so he continued having his church gatherings, and he videotaped them as these people, and he said, "Get out, you Nazis, get out." It was a very famous viral video. And I guess now he's been arrested after his last church service. So we have the video that we'll just play some of this audio from this, and then we'll talk about it.
Injunction that was served on Arthur here and David back here. I am to place both of them under arrest for breaching the Queen's Bench order.
Both of us under arrest?
Yes, sir. Would you please step out of the car?
What's your name, officer?
Andrews, 5244.
Okay. So how do you feel being a Nazi now? And then we got a gangster here.
Yes, sir.
How do you feel being a Nazi and breaking the Gestapo?
What's his officer? What's your name and number?
Sorry.
What's your name and number, please?
5283 Constable Darwood.
A Nazi, a lawbreaker. You're breaking the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. How can you look in your mirror, man?
So I have advised both you and Mr. Pawlowski over there. You guys are both under arrest. Please, if you would, step out of the vehicle and comply.
Sure. Report on this. Open the door, man. Whoa! Oh. Stop!
Get you to stay in the car. Stay back.
So he's being arrested there, and he insists on them carrying him like the Nazis would do. So he makes them carry him instead of walking to their car. But I think this goes to where this mantra of back the blue that conservatives tend to default to. I am supportive of policing when it's being used to do the right thing, to enforce laws against violence and assault and theft and all those terrible things that we want to keep away from society. But when you have a mindless mantra that doesn't have any principle besides just whatever they say, do it, it ends in a world in which you have a country like Canada in the 21st century putting people in cages for gathering together to have a church service, when the church is an institution that predates the existence of the Canadian government by a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and from what I understand, from the incident with the Calgary pastor, is it's actually written into their federal law that law enforcement may not intervene with church services. That was part of what he was trying to say in his videos. I do want to say something though about this whole back the blue, support the police, that sort of thing, because I have seen the police, ironically, in places like Canada and the UK, where the police have always been sort of propped up as being a gentler version, less violent, that sort of thing. They're the ones now who are so willing to use violence against their own people in order to enforce these COVID restrictions. In the United States, it doesn't always seem that way. At least it's inconsistent. In my own state, for example, I've heard of 3 specific instances where law enforcement refused to enforce the COVID restrictions. And one example was our Bernalillo County Sheriff right before the holiday season. We were supposed to be on this pretty strict lockdown. New Mexico has always been on a very strict lockdown compared to the rest of the nation. And our Bernalillo County Sheriff, who never comes out saying anything remotely political, came out with a statement saying, "I'm not enforcing this." And so, people, he said, we should be allowed to gather with our families, gather with our loved ones over the holidays. This is ridiculous. I'm not enforcing it. Recently, there was a restaurant here that held a protest, a sit-in protest. Everybody, there was many people there supporting him, eating there, patroning the restaurant. And the restaurant had received shutdown orders, and the New Mexico State Police showed up, and the business owner said, "Look, I'm not shutting down. If you want to arrest me, but I'm not going to shut down." And the New Mexico State Police refused to arrest him. So, if there are any police officers out there listening to this, I would say, you guys are frontline. You can make this turn into a Nazi state, or you can stand up for liberty and say no to these governors and these COVID restrictions, because without the enforcing arm of the government, which is law enforcement, these edicts, these unconstitutional, unlawful edicts, they have no teeth.
Right. It's very interesting to see how people can come together. Those who are saying, no, I'm more about law and order, tough on crime, can come together with civil libertarians to unite on, local sheriffs standing up against insane, anti-human, bigoted laws, like, arresting a pastor for going to having a church. And it's just so ridiculous. There's no science behind it. It's just people who are wannabe tyrants flexing their muscles as little bureaucrats, saying, "Look what we can do." We can show off how tough we are. We're going to take a quick break and return live on A Neighbor's Choice. When we come back, we're going to get Kerry Baldwin's thoughts on the exchange between Senator Rand Paul and Dr. Anthony Fauci that took place yesterday. We'll take a break and resume. Hello, Hello, this is David Kronosky with A Neighbor's Choice. I've got a mission for you. I'm a big believer in eating family farm-raised, high-quality grass-fed beef. That's why I'm a frequent customer of White Oak Pasture, a sixth-generation beautiful farm in southwest Georgia. Support sustainable, delicious meat of the highest quality. Ask for White Oak Pasture's beef at your local grocery here in Florida, or go to whiteoakpastures.com, and first-time customers get 20% off on purchases with our exclusive coupon code NEIGHBOR. Who is your neighbor? Dave and Wally are team drivers for Oakley Transport. One day, they came across a very serious accident on the highway. Some might pass on by, but Dave and Wally saw there was no time to waste. They jumped into action and saved two people's lives with moments to spare. That's the kind of courageous love we need more of today. It reflects the respected culture Oakley Transport develops with their driving professionals. CDLA licensed drivers. Join Oakley Transport today for a rewarding career. Visit oakleytransport.com. That's oakleytransport.com.
A lawsuit is not something that anyone looks forward to. It's a stressful process. There are attorneys in Tampa Bay that keep clients well informed, creating less stress. That law firm is Catania. Personal injury law is defended with full disclosure. There is no guessing game. If it's an auto accident, medical malpractice, nursing home negligence, unsafe working conditions, or motorcycle accidents, the law firm of Catania will handle the process worry-free from start to finish. Many victims don't realize they have a claim for the loss until they talk to Catania. They only represent private individuals and treat every case as if it's going to trial. Putting families first is more than just a slogan. It's their way of practicing law. It's a commitment to you. Remember, they don't get paid if you don't get paid. So go to Catania.com. Over 28 years in practice. Catania, personal injury, auto, and motorcycle accident attorneys. Catania, putting families first.
Office Tampa. Not attorney spokeswoman.
A Neighbor's Choice returns. Let's look at this story here, and we talked about it yesterday, but it's just, too important to not let it go. We're going to keep reiterating the facts here. Sean Davis from The Federalist tweeted out, Rand Paul has Anthony Fauci dead to rights on the charge of sending taxpayer money to the Wuhan virus lab from 2014 to July 13, 2020. The NIAID sent $3.75 million to EcoHealth Alliance to study bat coronavirus emergence. EHA then sent $600,000 of that to the Wuhan lab. And here's the link to the official usaspending.gov page for Fauci's Wuhan bat cash spending spree. Let's take a look at what was done with Fauci's grant for EcoHealth Alliance Wuhan. It was, quote, we constructed an infectious clone, unquote, of a SARS-like bat coronavirus. That is the literal definition of gain-of-function genetic research. We know that research was funded by Fauci and the NIAID because it explicitly says it was funded by the same NIAID grant listed here at usaspending.gov. The lead researcher who received the Fauci grants from NIAID via EcoHealth Alliance even admitted in his own hand that he would be conducting gain-of-function research by engineering infectious strands of cloned SARS-like bat coronaviruses. So he denied in front of Congress. Isn't that supposed to be a crime, Carrie? I mean, I don't know how these circus rules work here, but
yeah, I'm sure that it's a crime to lie to Congress. I think I would say that there's a tangled web when it comes to the origins of this particular virus. And at the very least, on the surface, what we can see that is absolutely obvious is that there's a man, Dr. Fauci, who has almost unlimited control over how Americans are allowed to behave. right now. And that same man has connections to certain research that is connected to not just the virus, but the FDA and the CDC. And it creates this obvious conflict of interest. I don't see how anybody can look at that, that triangle and see that and say that there is no conflict of interest. He has way too much power. There is plenty of money trails that connect the Wuhan lab to this virus, to other research labs in America, to various research projects that are paid for through our government. So, is Dr. Fauci lying to Senator Rand Paul? I don't know. Maybe. Is that a crime? Probably. But at the same time, he's been given not just blanket power from the government over people, but the people themselves are taking him as an unquestionable authority. Don't say anything against Dr. Fauci because, you're going to get deplatformed or censored or shunned or whatever. That's not how science works. Science is about freedom of inquiry and asking questions and falsifying evidence. That's the way science works. And the way we're operating is both anti-scientific and unethical.
And it's holding us back. It's harming lives, and it's an outrage. We just talked about the science that's come out that Frontiers in Physiology published, that people who are consuming a high amount of this omega-6 seed oil, these vegetable oils, the soybean and corn oil that our government heavily subsidizes, extracting our labor to do so, that those things seem to be the huge essential connection between those who have severe cases. It's this of COVID, that this leukotoxin that's directly caused by the consumption of these vegetable oils, omega-6 rich vegetable oils that our government uses our money to subsidize, is linked to the severe cases of COVID. And yet not a single peep do we hear from these wannabe nanny state. Because that's my argument, Carrie, is I don't want to have a nanny state government, but if you're going to be a nanny state, at least be kind of ethically or, intelligent and tell people, hey, while I'm pushing all these big pharma products like I've been hired to do as this agency, also please cut back on your seed oils. We're really seeing science show this could be a big help for your immune system in this time. Since you're listening to my every word, can you please do that too? They don't even have the decency to do that. And that makes them a failure even on their own standard of nanny state,
Yeah, well, I mean, if we're using the analogy of a nanny state, I would say that the nanny state has an Oedipal complex. The Oedipal mother is known for harming her children in her interest. And so if we have a nanny state, which I agree that we do, then that nanny state has an Oedipal complex and is not acting in our best interest.
Well, very good. Carrie Baldwin, it's great having you on the program, and thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
I want people to check out your website, mereliberty.com, where you can find her articles challenging and rethinking paradigms in politics, religion, and culture. Go to mereliberty.com. And so that's it for today's show, folks. And, tomorrow I want to get into this story about how the D.C. jail treatment of the Capitol riot defendants is drawing bipartisan outrage. That's a story on justthenews.com. We'll get into that because it really illustrates the sociopathic hatred for human decency that seems to be sweeping DC culture. It's just holding everybody back. They need to stop and repent of their violent hatred for dignity and for love of even people who disagree with you and vote differently. What a novel concept. That's the heart and soul of civilization. But this is what happens when we continue to dehumanize people and insist that the state has a prerogative to criminalize and throw away the key and put people into solitary confinement for even smaller issues that are not, mass murder and things like that. So that's it for today's show, folks. Email me hello@aneighborschoice.com. That's hello@aneighborschoice.com. I'm David Gronowski. Godspeed.